Today we have Mike and Kyle talking about how they use it in their work. But due to the sensitivity of some of their work, some of the questions that you ask may not get answered at this point purely because of the nature of their work. So bear with them. They will tell you everything they can and answer as many questions, but don't get offended if they're not able to answer a question. So I've got Alex. Alex, if you want to join me on the front there. So Alex and I have put these things together, again, as I say, purely as an education, purely as bringing people together and bringing community together. Alex, I don't know if you want to drop anything in there.
No, yeah, this is the third one. They've been going really well. We are doing them on a regular basis now. Last time we were in alt space, so we tried a bit of alt space, then jumped back to engage. That's another thing, I guess. We're not always going to be on this platform. Sometimes we might mix it up and do a webinar as well, but these are being quite fun at the moment. So these are cool, but I'm really pleased to have Mike and Kyle with us today. I'm glad they joined us at short notice, and I'm looking forward to the next part next week when we can actually see some of their models. We're just having a bit of trouble getting them in to engage at the moment, just with timescales. I think they're really busy. But yeah, I basically look after River, and we do lots of VR training for different, basically law enforcement around the world, for UK fire and police, and we create the photorealistic environments for people to train repeatedly in, consistently, and also a lot safer. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Mike and Kyle have got to talk to us about, and then having a bit of a discussion afterwards.
So yeah, we have questions at the end, so I think we're going to leave the stage now and let Mike get on with it, because that's what you're here to come. We're not here to see Alex and I. So Mike.
And I'm loving this new room. This makes me feel like I'm in the film Goodfellas.
Mike, all yours.
Okay, hi, yeah. What I'm going to do, before I start, I'm going to play a video to you all first. So I'm just going to roll it now.
We've seen how fire services are using virtual reality, but what about other first responders? Here at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, they're hard at work on how police might use virtual reality in their training.
Number 7 Ferguson House. Caller reports sounds of a violent disturbance.
Oh, wow.
Screaming,
I can see some feet already. So I don't think that people would expect to put the police and virtual reality together. Why is it so important that the police are interacting with technology in this way?
You can replicate one-off events. So a one-off event, which could be a dangerous or hazardous environment, you can actually recreate as a one-off, and people would never ever get the opportunity to rehearse that. But in VR we can, so we can give them that vehicle, we can give them that opportunity to do a one-off scenario and do it safely.
Here we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to see if this woman is alive. She's obviously taken some pills. There's a heartbeat here.
I can definitely see already how it could be used to, in the way that a lot of games are really, to open up your mind to possibilities around crime, why people may have committed criminal activities. Those kind of questions are definitely there already. Yeah, that was more enjoyable than the fire one, I think, which perhaps shouldn't be my takeaway, but I am like, oh, I could go back into that world, whereas the fire scene, I just wanted to get out.
I sort of work for DSTL, and my job is to really, I'm a senior engineer, and I actually work in the immersive technologies department, and my role is to actually produce proof of concepts for in using the immersive technologies. So that'd be, you know, all your XR type technologies. So my background is bringing science and technology to the police service, and it was to the police service outside of the Metropolitan Police Service area. So I provided technical support to all the outer forces, really. That was my sort of basic job. And it was really based around major security events, and I would sort of be working behind the scenes. I can remember when I was a young child, very young, which is not that long ago, I may add, I used to dream about watching a film, but instead of watching a film and watching it on a flat 2D screen, I was immersed in the film. And this was years and years ago, before VR came out. And it was only now it's all coming to fruition. The technology has caught up with my imagination. So for me, it was really, really an exciting place to be. Also, when I was a youngster, back again, harping back to my younger days, I used to be daydreaming. I used to get in trouble at school just for daydreaming all the time. I'd be in a class and my mind would just be wandering, racing away, and thinking about all sorts of things. But the irony of it is now I'm getting paid to do that as well, and create scenes using my imagination. So I used to provide technical support using geophysical equipment like ground penetrating radar, looking for bodies underneath the ground, or using sonar equipment for searches with the police. So I used some of that sort of technology background working directly with the police, but my role was really to apply the science. So I saw myself as a sort of bridge between the sort of content developers and myself. So I could provide the narrative to people like Alex. I could understand the technology. I could understand how to code and actually speak to them in their language, that I could translate the user requirements to something that they could actually understand. So I think my speciality was that I could see the picture before we had even started the project. I could see this is what I'd like to present to our end users, and I worked quite closely with we have like police advisors. I'm not a police officer myself. I'm just
C'est mon casque qui a
engineer. So
mal fonctionné. 2 secondes.
I find that I could actually provide that sort of like technology application and present it to Alex. So we bounced different ideas off with each other and created that scene that you see there. So the uniqueness of the scene is it's actually photorealistic. So when you actually go into the scene, you feel as if you are already there. So it's really looking at the emotional intelligence and how do I feel when I go into that scene. At the moment, we're actually looking at okay, we can produce these scenes, but are they effective? Can you just have an ordinary scene, and can it just be just effective when you're maybe trying to train people or provide some sort of awareness while they're actually going through a sort of training program? So it's really looking at the efficacy of these scenes and can we prove it scientifically that they are of use. For me, that's really the most important thing at the moment, and we're trialing that outside of the sort of area, but we're doing it with another police force. So for me, it's been a journey, and it's been a journey where the crime scene was our first scene that we actually produced, and it's really been something that has proved to be successful at the moment. So I'm not going to say much more than that, but I just think that for me, it's just been a great experience, and this is only part. We're only looking at the start of the journey. So with now graphics cards becoming leaner and meaner, then they're providing that sort of processing power that will improve the visual side of what we see and what we experience. And not only that, it's looking at all the other senses. Can we heighten all the other senses? Our smell, touch, feel, as we experience. The visuals are starting to really improve. But what about everything else? Brian.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, yeah. I've got one.
Yeah.
I don't know who that noise is. I don't know if that's coming from somewhere out there. Mike, so since you've been using this sort of technology, how much time or how much benefit do you think you're getting from, say, from getting into understanding more about what's happened? Do you think this sort of technology has enhanced the way that you work? And how much do you think you're moving on with this technology?
Yeah, so the technology, I believe, is still only just starting to scratch the surface of the capability. So it's how can we move this technology on? Headsets are getting better resolution, you're getting less latency, and the experience is good. But my only bugbear when I see a lot of VR work is that it's the application of how they use the VR. So people do tend to have good experiences when they enter VR. So VR is not going to be for everyone. So I don't believe it's VR. I see VR as just being one of the many technologies that we can actually use. So I think it'll be a blended technologies all coming together to enhance that experience. So whether it be through, you know, tablets, whether it be through a mobile phone or mixed reality headset.
Okay. So I don't want to get bogged down with questions now. So we'll have Carl, and then we'll have the last 15 minutes to ask general questions to everybody, if that's okay.
Well, good afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Could be morning as well, and to our YouTube viewers as well. So as mentioned, my name is Kyle. I'm actually a police officer based in the Metropolitan Police in London. I actually specialise within the field of counter-terrorism, which is an area I've worked in for the last 10 years or so. But more recently, my role has been focusing on how we can use new technology in order to better prepare and train our officers and members of the public on the terrorist threat, what they need to be aware of. We can practice responding to terrorist incidents. And that is very much included the use of virtual reality. And it is my pleasure this evening to be able to give you a presentation on it. And thanks to Alex and Brian for allowing me this opportunity. So hopefully this will work for us. So that's me, just in case. You can find me on LinkedIn afterwards if you do want to touch base in the longer term. So I currently lead a team within the Metropolitan Police, specifically in counter-terrorism, called Virtual, which stands for Virtual Immersive Reality for Terrorism Understanding, Awareness and Learning. Bit of a mouthful, however, it does quite succinctly describe exactly what we do. So our small team was established in 2017. We are a very small team. It still consists of me as a full-time officer, and I have 3 support officers under me as well, but we are hoping that that team will expand in the near future. And our kind of vision was that we saw what was being other people were able to do, other emergency services, organisations, and what they were able to achieve with virtual reality. And our aim was to be able to build an internal capability within the Metropolitan Police, so that not only can we utilise virtual reality within our training, but also have an ability to produce it and create it ourselves. So since we started in 2017 and the journey we've been on, I'm now pleased to say that we can produce a full range of different types of VR experiences in-house. And as I've said, our main focus is on counter-terrorism awareness and training, both for police officers and also for members of the public. So I know some of our viewers are joining us from YouTube and might not have used virtual reality themselves before, and also we've got people here tonight in the audience who are using virtual reality headsets. But I just wanted to give a quick overview for those of us that haven't used virtual reality before or have had very limited experience as to what exactly is virtual reality. So as it states in the quote up there, it's just like being there. That is the ultimate goal of virtual reality. And essentially, it is an immersive digital generated environment that can be explored through wearing a headset and using controllers depending on what hardware you're using. It gives us the ability to place a user in any room or location, and they are able to interact with objects or perform different actions depending on what that particular training scenario is. And as I've said, the overarching aim is to provide an experience that is close to the real thing as possible. And I'm sure you can imagine, use your imagination to think of the sort of applications and the abilities and benefits that provides to us within training. So there are lots of benefits for training and for various different sectors, but I'm going to particularly focus on the benefits I've observed that it can bring to emergency service training, and specifically some of the work that we've done within the Metropolitan Police. So in essence, these 5 up here are the core kind of benefits that I've personally observed. It gives us an ability to provide realistic training without leaving the classroom. Quite a lot of police officer training is classroom based, and virtual reality gives us the opportunity where we can bring that training, realistic training, into the classroom. It gives us an ability to train on dangerous situations in a controlled environment and without any real risk to safety. As I'm sure you can imagine, police officers being on the front line, we have to deal with a number of different scenarios, not only terrorism-related incidents such as suspect packages, but also being confronted by people with knives and things of that nature. So we often find, as frontline officers, we will on occasion find ourselves in dangerous situations. Virtual reality gives us the ability to allow officers to practice their response and what they would do in those situations without actually putting them in a real world environment where there could be some real dangers to them. It's less expensive than live training. So in the Metropolitan Police, we do adopt live training. That is the gold standard for training of a police officer. If we can replicate it in a real world scenario for them to learn in the real world, then we will do. But what we found is that when we adopt training in a real world scenario, it can come at significant cost, both financially and also in resources. A lot of logistics and planning and things of that nature need to go into it. So what this allows us to do is with virtual reality, it allows us to try and bring that live training into a digital environment, which leads me on to my next benefit that I've realized from the work we've done is that realistic training is more available. With real world training, there's only so many officers that you can put through that training at any one time. And you may have to, if say, for instance, we're doing a terrorism related scenario, we would have to close down a part of London and we would have to enact that scenario and make it as realistic as possible. And we may be able to do that once, twice, maybe 4 times a year. But what virtual reality allows us to do is that by bringing that training into a digital environment, we can roll it out as many times as we like to as many officers as we like, time and time again. So it does, as it says there, makes it more available. And the last one, but certainly by no means the least, is this idea of a false memory. And this is something that is really, really important for us within police training. So what the scientists tell us and all of the research, and I'm by no means a scientist, and so I will try and explain it from my understanding as best as possible, is that when officers or anyone learns in a classroom-based environment, whether it be by PowerPoint or a tabletop exercise, that learning experience obviously is stored in your brain and in your memory, and it's stored in a certain part of the brain. But what we found, and what the scientists have found, is that when someone learns and trains in virtual reality, it has this effect where it actually causes a false memory. It saves that learning experience as if they actually did that training for real life, as if it actually took place. And what that means is when a police officer is confronted with a situation, their brain will quickly go through their past experiences. Very, very quickly, unconsciously, their brain will be thinking, have I dealt with a situation like this before? If I have, what did I do? Was it a positive outcome or was it a negative outcome? And all of that information is processed quick time, and it helps them to make the decision about what they're going to do with the situation they're currently dealing with. So what the science tells us is that if someone's learned something in the traditional way in a classroom with a PowerPoint or a tabletop exercise, it is less likely that that training memory, that training experience is going to form part of that decision-making process when they're dealing with a similar situation for real. But because virtual reality creates this false memory, actually that training is more likely, significantly more likely to form part of their decision-making process. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, please speak to me afterwards and I'll try and explain it in a better way. But essentially what that's telling us is that if our officers learn in a realistic training environment in virtual reality, compared to classroom-based PowerPoint or tabletop exercises, it's going to serve them better in the real world when they face these similar situations for real. So, moving on. So from our experience, there are 2 main things which can affect the quality of a virtual reality-based training experience. The first is the hardware, so the actual headsets and equipment that is used to deliver that training. And then the second is how that virtual reality training has been created in the first place, how that digital environment has been created. So the first I'll look at are headsets. Again, some of you will be well versed and well experienced with virtual reality, and you'll know about all the different types of headsets. Again, for those who are joining us on YouTube, maybe who maybe don't have that much experience, I'll just give you a quick brief overview of our experience. So the first type of headset that we use for our training in Metropolitan Police is called FreeDoF, which stands for 3 Degrees of Freedom. And essentially, it's very much like the headset you see on the screen. So we use the Pico G2, which is the headset you can see at the top right-hand side there. And that image at the top there shows one of our classroom kits that we use to deliver our training. Essentially, when someone wears a FreeDoF virtual reality headset, they are able to explore the digital environments of their training session by moving their head. So they can look all around them, and wherever they look, the head will move in that virtual environment and they can see in that direction. However, part of the limitation with this type of headset is that it's not as immersive. So you don't have physical hands in that environment where you can pick things up. And in order to move around, you actually have to either use a stare function using the headset, a button on the headset, or you might have a controller in your hands, which is shown in the image of the Pico G2 headset. So essentially, when using this type of headset, the officer or the person that's participating in the training does the training from a static position. They can still move around in the environment, but they don't actually physically move within the real world. And this sort of headset has lots of benefits for us, as it shows on the picture there, which is just a stock image off of Google. You will see that it gives us that ability to bring virtual reality into that traditional kind of classroom scenario. When we have a group of police officers that we need to train, we've got limited space, we might only have a classroom, and they're all going to be sitting down. This sort of headset allows us to put the headset onto them and take them through a training experience. The next type of headset which we use within the police is, as some of you may be aware as well, is 6 Degrees of Freedom, 6DoF. This has exactly the same kind of usability as a FreeDoF headset, but it is more immersive and does give more benefits depending on the training situation. So essentially what it allows you to do is not only can you move your head and use your head to explore and look around the training environment you are in, but when I move in the real world, I will also move in the virtual world as well. And also you tend to have controllers or hand tracking that actually gives you virtual hands like I have at the moment, where I can move my fingers and I can pick things up. So it takes virtual reality training to that next level. One of the maybe kind of historic advantages of this type of headset is that normally you need a powerful PC or a powerful laptop to connect the headset to in order to run. We are now seeing the that's come out and with that wireless capability. So we are making progression. Shown on the screen there is just some photos from some of the work where we've used this particular type of headset. On the left there is some firearms range training that we were testing virtual reality for. And we've got some suspect package awareness training. We see 2 officers bending down dealing with a suspect package. And then on the far right, we have a drones awareness package, which I'll be running through with you in a few slides time. So as I mentioned, the other thing that affects the training experience in virtual reality is how has that virtual experience been created? What methodology has been used? And I know we've talked about some of these particular technologies and methodologies for creating virtual environments in the last few weeks. So the 3 main ways within virtual reality based training at the moment is you've got your 360 imagery, you've got your computer generated, and you've also got laser scanning and photogrammetry. And as per the hardware that we use, each of these methods all have different benefits and different disadvantages. And for our kind of learning experience has shown that it's really about trying to find the right hardware and the right kind of digital environment production technique that is suitable for your training needs and your training objectives that you're trying to achieve. So the first of these, the 360 imagery using a camera or 360 video, has lots of benefits. It's very, very quick to put together, very easy production. Most people are able to do this sort of virtual experience with very limited training. And essentially, the way it works is you will have a 360-degree camera. You will go to your real location, which you want to be your training environment, and you will capture that location using a series of 360 images by moving the camera around or by capturing 360 video. And the best way that I can explain this sort of virtual reality experience is, for those of you, and I'm sure most of you have used it, is Google Street View. The concept behind Google Street View is exactly the same, but rather than having it on your PC screen, you have it in a headset. So it's a series of 360 photos that you can look around and all around you, and you can move around by jumping to the next location where the photo was taken. And as I say, it's very quick and easy to do, and it's had some great benefits for us, and I will show that to you how we've used it. And you are able to put in some limited training activity into there as well. And for those of you who are interested, when I do show you some of the ways that we've been using this particular technology, at the moment we are using the Ricoh Theta Z1 camera, which is that image there, the tall black 360 camera you see on the left hand side. Thank you. Alex is kindly pointing it out for me. So the next type of capture technique is computer generated, very much like the environment we're sitting in at the moment here within the Engage platform. Again, it's got some fantastic benefits. It gives you lots of flexibility with being able to make a virtual training environment, being able to change that virtual training environment and amend it to what you want it to be. It gives you the ability to either build that virtual environment based on a real location, or alternatively, you can make a completely fictitious location. It doesn't actually have to be somewhere that actually really exists. A lot of benefits with this. The two main platforms that you can currently use or that we've experimented with are the Unreal Engine and Unity. We primarily use Unity for producing this sort of training, but it does require some knowledge about how to actually use that software program. This is a next level up really from that kind of 360 photo based virtual reality experience. You are going to need to either self-teach yourself using YouTube videos, and there is lots of resources on both the Unity and the Unreal Engine websites that can show you how to start using these sort of programs. So this is one of the methodologies that we use. And as Brian's mentioned, hopefully next week we'll be able to show you some of the environments that we've created and that we use with our police officers. So the next level up is scanning and photogrammetry. I'm not going to embarrass myself by going into too much detail about this because we have a photogrammetry expert in the room from River, Alex. And essentially, laser scanning and photogrammetry is kind of the highest level of realism that you can get within a virtual reality experience, and within training sometimes that can be essential. And it's like Mike showed with his, that was a photorealistic training experience, and sometimes we find that we do need that level of realism. So for instance, if we're doing a house search or something along that nature, and part of that learning experience for the officer is that it needs to be as realistic as possible, then this is the sort of level we will go to. So within the Metropolitan Police, we've always traditionally had an ability to do laser scanning because we use it with our crime scenes and road traffic accidents and things of that nature, but we never really used it within virtual reality based technology. We're now starting to utilize that in-house ability of laser scanning and photogrammetry. We've only just started to explore this technology for our purposes, but we will be using this as we move forward into the future. And it really, really is impressive if you haven't been able to do that sort of experience before. So just to give you an idea, a quick overview of some of the things that we have produced within the police. These are some of the packages that I'm able to show you some video clips of. So to start off with, I'll start with the 360 photo-based stuff that we've been doing. So down the bottom left of the screen there, the video that's playing there, this is the Palace of Westminster in London. For those of you who don't know, the Palace of Westminster in London, it's the centre of our government. It's an iconic site, and it's right in the heart of London along the river. And at the Palace of Westminster, we have hundreds of police officers that are working there on a daily basis, and we will have new officers joining that particular building to work all of the time. So what we created is, using 360 photos, we created a virtual reality experience where officers are able to explore the location where they're working, and they can receive briefings on all of the security critical things that they need to know for the area they're going to be working in, where the fire extinguishers are, where the first aid kits are, and all of the responsibilities that they have when they are assigned to that post. And that has been something that's been very well received, where officers would traditionally be briefed on what is expected of them using a PowerPoint or a Word document. They're actually able to go to the locations and learn it. At the top right-hand side is also a 360 degrees virtual reality training experience, and I'll be hopefully showing you this one in a bit more detail a little bit later, so I won't be going into that in too much detail. And the other 3 videos that you see on the screen are all computer generated, which we've done using Unity. At the top left-hand side there is a drones awareness package that we produced. So some of you may be aware, especially of those living in the UK, we have had some security-related incidents involving drones. Some of you may recall a couple of years ago we had a lot of disruption around Heathrow and Gatwick Airport because members of the public were flying drones in and around the airspace. What we found from those experiences is that actually frontline officers know what a drone is, but they're not able to identify the different types of drone, which is really essential when we're considering what our response is going to be to any incident where drones are involved. So what this package allows officers to do is they can walk around, they can pick up real scale models and look at the different types of drone that are currently available to members of the public. They can learn about their flight times, how long they can fly for, the range that they can fly from the pilot, all of the different types of capability that they need to know in order to make effective decisions about how to respond to any incident that involves one of these drones. Right in the middle there, above our logo, this is a package that we've been working on, and this is a very, very early version of it. So part of our virtual reality journey is we're not only working internally with police officers, but we also want to bring the benefits of virtual reality-based training externally to those locations and buildings that we work with in London to try and make as safe as possible. So this is an example of one of the packages put together. This is just literally a test where we've taken a real location in London and we are essentially rebuilding a digital version of that location so that we can train security personnel on things that they should be aware of and how to respond to terrorism-related incidents. And last, and by no means least, at the bottom right-hand corner, this is showing a virtual reality house that's been made. And this is a project that we're currently doing in partnership with the UK Home Office and Exeter University. So one of the questions we often get asked on our team by our senior management and those that we show our virtual reality training to is it just a toy? Is it just a gimmick? A lot of people, when they think of virtual reality training, they think of computer games and things of that nature. So to answer that question, we've currently got a research project going with Exeter University where we have created a training scenario for our new recruits. And currently we are taking new recruits through their traditional classroom-based training and a sample of new recruits through virtual reality-based training. And we've got a number of observational experiments that we're applying throughout the new recruits journey so that we can actually quantify and assess how effective or non-effective virtual reality training is compared to our traditional methods. And so far it has been shown to be very, very effective, not only from knowledge retention, but also from the actual physical engagement and interactivity that we get from our students. So this particular package, as I said, is a house which officers can search. The scenario is it's actually someone who has gone missing. So officers turn up to the address and they are required to follow the procedures that they should follow when they are reporting a missing person. When they turn up to the house, they speak to the mother.
I seem to have lost Carl there. Sorry about this. Hopefully we'll be
can you
back
hear
in
me?
a second. Yeah, back in. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. So as the officers go round that house, they are expected to follow all of the procedures that they should follow when reporting a missing person. But we have put a number of items in that house which are indicators of terrorist attack planning, which the officer should be able to pick up on. Because one of the things we don't want our officers to do is to get tunnel vision, so that just because they go into a location and they think that they're dealing with a particular type of incident, we want them to have an open mind as to what else that may be going on that they need to deal with. So that's that one there. So what I'd like to do next before we go to questions is, if I can get this to work, I would like to show you one of the 360 virtual packages we've got. We unfortunately haven't been able to bring in the some of our models. We'll do that next week, but I can at least show you this. So you probably won't be able to hear the audio on this, or if someone can tell me if you can hear the audio. No, probably not. Okay, so this is a virtual reality training package that we put together. Let me just get the controls so I can move around. So we'll enter this property here. So in this virtual reality training package, we have got a flat which officers can walk around and explore. And in this flat, there are a number of items which we have identified through real counter-terrorism investigations in the UK and abroad that are indicators of terrorist activity. And they are all things which, as frontline police officers, we or they may come across during their duties, and they need to be aware of to start identifying potential indicators of terrorist activity. So we did this using our 360 camera, and as you'll see, there's a number, they can look around the room wearing a virtual reality headset from that static 1-point position. And with the controller, they are able to explore that room and select certain items. At the top left-hand side, you will see a counter. There is an audio briefing that explains all of this to them, but at the top left-hand side there is a counter, and that's telling me that there are 6 items of note in this room. So the officers explore the room and they find the items of note. When they find those items of note, it then brings up a closer image of that item, and they receive an audio briefing of why that particular item that they have found may be significant. So as they work through the property, as I say, if I can close this one down, it's going to work for me. Come on. Yeah. So as they work through the building and through the flat, they will find a number of different items. They then move on to another room. It's quite difficult to do this using this tablet functionality. Come on. It's playing up for me because of the way I'm running it. But essentially, they move around from room to room, exploring the rooms and finding the items. And these are all things that traditionally we would have trained police officers on or briefed police officers on using PowerPoint presentations, where we would show them images of these things. They would all sit down in a room and we would just talk at them and hope that the knowledge that we're giving them is going in. But what this allows us to do is to give the officers the opportunity to have that individual learning experience without any distractions, wearing a virtual reality headset, and they can learn at their own pace and they can explore the different rooms and learn about the different items that are particularly of note for them. I might see if it works now. Okay, it's like it is. So this again, this is a different room. This is an office here. So as they explore this room, if I bring it up here, there's some items here that are, come on, work for me. No, it's not wanting to work for me, unfortunately. Oh, here we go. So there's items which, as they go around, they're on their own. If you were to find them on their own, might not be suspicious. But as the story develops and unfolds, and as they find more and more things within these rooms, it starts to show that actually there's something more sinister going on here. Because what we find is that when we look at terrorism investigations and things like that, it's not always obvious. When officers go into people's premises and buildings, or they're doing a search for counter-terrorism or whatever the case may be, people that are doing attack planning and are planning terrorist attacks, they don't always have this massive bomb factory where there's loads of chemicals bubbling in the corner and lots of science apparatus and things like that. It's actually quite subtle, and it's picking up on these subtle indicators and putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together that normally gives us that big picture of exactly what's going on. So this particular training package has been rolled out to officers within the police, within London. The feedback we've had has been absolutely fantastic from it, and we've had some really great feedback, a lot better than we thought it would be. And we have developed on it, and we have improved it tremendously since we first did it. But this is a very simple training package that we put together using a 360 photo camera, and the quality of the training experiences we can put together. So we are really excited to see where it goes in the future. But I think when we do look at virtual reality technology, you know, which originally came out for gaming, when we compare it now, it is the training sector is completely taken over with the technology, and we're really excited about what the future holds. So that's pretty much my input, Brian. Unless anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, I think there'll be quite a lot of questions there. I'm interested to see how it's now being used in anger in respect to putting people in places where they would be in danger in normal circumstances, and you're replacing that with things that are going deep into their memory, which is really, really good use of it. The idea has been around for quite a while, but it's never been mastered and never really been used in anger as you are doing it within the police, which is it's really refreshing. And I think there's lots of things that you've highlighted we can improve as a virtual community, as an XR community, and really help putting people's lives, take them out of danger, put them into a situation where when they are in that danger, they can make robust decisions on memories that they've taken through these different experiences. So really impressed. So let's open up for questions.
Kyle, I'd just like to say, as long as you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can hear you, mate. Yep.
Is amazing. Obviously we've met a few times, once in London, then in Germany, but the amount of things you've done since we last met, that's crazy. Amazing. Awesome work. So
You're on now.
So many different bits of content. That's awesome.
Carlo have presented the hardware they're using mainly VR. Are they planning or they try to use different platforms like augmented reality or, I don't know, like HoloLens, something similar?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer on that one. So we have explored other types of hardware. So part of our learning journey has been looking at the different types of virtual experience. So we have looked at augmented reality, mixed reality, and things of that nature, and specifically the HoloLens. I actually went out to Barcelona last year to see how they've been experimenting and trying to use the HoloLens for firearms training, where, as I'm sure some of you can imagine, when we train our firearms officers, we normally have a environment that they can run around, what we call a kill house, where they can run around and practice their tactics and things of that nature. So they were experimenting using the HoloLens as a way of trying to bring in hostile actors and do different scenarios and overlay a digital scenario within the actual real world that they have around them. We were very impressed with the ability of what the technology is able to offer, but unfortunately the technology in the headsets currently has some restrictions that really makes it difficult for us to use that sort of technology within a training environment within policing, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience here. So one of the reasons for that is, although when you wear a HoloLens or a equivalent type of headset, is that the actual screen within that headset that shows you the digital content is actually relatively quite small. So what we found is that when we were trying to do a training scenario where the officer's wearing the headset, if they were looking at a particular individual and dealing with them, because of the screen restrictions within the headset, the digital content of the person that they were dealing with, they might only be able to see their head and their body. But what's really important when police officers are training and making decisions is that they're taking information from their surroundings all the time. So although they may be looking at a particular individual's face and concentrating on their face, in their peripheral vision, they are also looking at what is that person doing with their hands. Are their hands going in their pockets? They're looking at the person's whole body language. And unfortunately, because of some of the restrictions with the hardware, the headsets at the moment, is that when officers are dealing with those situations, they can't see the full body language at the moment. So the applications for that particular type of technology, I mean, are fantastic. And I can see in the future that once the hardware improves, there will be some clear kind of usage for that within a police training environment. But from our own personal experience on my team, we found that at the moment, with what we want to achieve with virtuality-based training, the headsets are a little bit limiting for us at the moment with regards to that. So I hope that kind of answers your question as to why we're keeping an eye on it. We do horizon scan the technology. We are keeping an eye on it, but we're not proactively using it at the moment. I don't know, Mike, whether I know you've experimented with that sort of stuff before from the kind of test scientist side of things.
Okay, yeah, I'm on now, yeah. Okay, yeah, so we have looked at the HoloLens one, and as Kyle is saying, it's like looking through a letterbox. So that sort of field of view is really limited. The HoloLens 2 has increased as well, so it's giving you a wider field of view, but it's still not there yet. But hand gesturing and some of the capabilities have improved, but as time progresses, and hopefully then the HoloLens will give you a wider field of view that will make itself useful for this sort of user case.
It's interesting. It's an interesting fact that with the HoloLens development that with maintenance and stuff within manufacturing, the HoloLens is proving to be a pretty good tool in respect to understanding how to do tasks that are maybe on the shop floor or maybe repairs. But you are totally correct in knowing, and you need to know more about the environment when you're in the sort of situations that you are in. When you're just doing normal maintenance, matter that much to have everything in the scene. You just need to understand how to work the particular task that you're doing. So it's a good point, and it's something that we should talk to Microsoft and people that do the mixed reality headsets and explain some of the needs for different areas of the services, basically. Any more questions from the audience?
Kyle, you had mentioned the idea of retaining false memories and.
Yeah, Kyle, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Alex.
Yeah, so Greg was basically asking, you mentioned about creating memories. He wondered if there was any sort of detailed research on that he might be able to get, because he's looking to
there is.
together.
Yeah, I do have some academic articles that's based on that I've read as part of our learning that we've done, which I certainly can share with you. If you want to link in with me on LinkedIn, I can get those articles to you with some of that kind of academic evidence-based research that says that is the case. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, Greg, I'm the same. I've got loads of information, loads of links to universities and papers that we've done with Nottingham, London, Sheffield. I could name millions. So yeah, if you want to link in, if you ask any questions, we can get some papers.
Hello, Brian. Can you hear me?
Hello, Rob. Yeah, I can hear you.
How you doing?
How are you?
All right. Yeah, not so bad. You?
Yeah, fine.
It's nice to meet you virtually. So just a quick question for Kyle, really. One of the things that we've experienced, certainly, and Brian, you could probably echo this as well, with people starting out to use headsets. There's that initial novelty factor, and there's the delay, if you like, in terms of how quick they start to really use it in earnest as a daily tool. And you know, from our experience, certainly in engineering arena, it's still a little bit of that nice to have. So from your experience, and it's fantastic to see some of the applications you guys are employing for training, and how long did it take, or how long have you experienced that time between people seeing it as a bit of a novelty tool, a bit of a nice to have, to really getting it applied in their minds as a day-to-day practical tool?
Yeah, so within the Met, we haven't rolled out virtuality as far as I would like it to be. We only have a limited number of headsets and things of that nature. But the question you've asked is one of the key things that we were focused on and we were concerned about. It's a new toy, it's a new thing. Yeah. Is that novelty going to wear off? Are people not going to use it anymore? But what we've actually found is that, yes, it is novelty, it is a new thing. We actually anticipated that we would have officers that were quite resistant to trying a new technology through fear of embarrassment and things of that nature. But actually, we had the opposite. We actually had, when we've done our training sessions, we've had officers have literally been chomping at the bit, you know, to wear the headset to do the training. And as I say, the feedback we've received has been really, really good. Fantastic. For us, with regards to the kind of novelty, the longer term kind of, is it going to wear off and things like that, that is where we've really tried to focus on our training packages to make sure that what leads the virtual reality training is actually the training objectives. Mm-hmm. So we don't rush straight to photogrammetry or to computer generated or to whatever because we've got a new bit of kit that we want to use and things like that. We really have to get down to the bones of what is this training about, what are the learning objectives, and really build that virtual reality training environment so that it's really hitting those learning objectives. If you hit your learning objectives and it's built around that, the training is always going to be worthwhile. And what we actually find is that, and as I'm sure Alex and some of the others will agree as well, is that when people start to use headsets, even though you've used a virtual reality headset and the novelty starting to wear off, if you've got a training package that is being developed correctly and is hitting all of the boxes of what it tries to achieve and is immersive, the person becomes so involved in their training, they actually forget that they're wearing a headset. because they're concentrating on what they're doing. And that's the kind of the mind space that we really want to get them into, where that when they're wearing that headset, they're concentrating on the challenge or the training scenario that we've been provided them with, rather than thinking, oh, I'm wearing a headset and people watching me and things like that. So yes, it is a really valid question. It is something that we do continually monitor, but that's kind of the approach that we've taken to it so far. And it seems to be that the uptake and the longevity of using this type of technology within policing and training seems to be there, to be honest with you. And for us, we kind of see it as the new PowerPoint. Really, it kind of fills that gap, and it is working well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah,
I think I can add to that as well, Paul, as you probably know. I think the main problem we have with a lot of this is a lot of people doing different things like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. There's a lot of people doing it across a lot of different sectors, and they're delivering different things that are based around a user case. So they become very tied or very focused on one thing. Whereas my attitude, and probably what you're describing, is you want to make it around what the requirements for the role are you're actually undertaking. And I think this is part of what Alex and I were trying to do with this bit of movement that we're doing with the XR files, is to start to bring people together so that we don't repeat, and we also don't go off at tangents. We start to build an environment where it becomes more natural for people to be in. So the novelty will wear off because it becomes more real to what they do. So it doesn't mean it has to be realistic to a point that you mentioned. If everybody's interacting, you get lost in the event. So that can be one of the major focuses. The more you engage people, the more they are in the moment. But we need to work together because there are too many alternatives and too many people trying different ways of doing stuff, where we should only be doing it one way and joining it together so that we have one platform. So it's a bug of mine, and changing people's minds when people are in industrial mindset is also another one. But I could go on forever about that one, so I'll keep quiet about that.
Yeah. So can I say something, Brian, as well, please? So in my own opinion as well, it's what's fit for purpose. So if a string in 2 tin cans at either end can help you communicate, and that's well and good as well. However, I think the game changer now is in the current situation that we're in at the moment, where we've had this sort of like big event, coronavirus, and people can't travel. So the game changer possibly for these immersive technologies will be is that we can communicate, even though we can't travel, but we can be in our own remote space, but be together in this collaborative space. And I think really that might be the game changer now for this type of technology.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think another, just building on game changers, I think another big step forward in the technology is that we're now starting to see, like with the Quest and things of that nature, where you've got your hand tracking, where those taking part in the training don't actually have to hold controllers. Because part of our experience when we're designing virtual reality based training and we're actually using it is that we really don't know officers' previous experience of using this technology, whether they've done it before, and how long it's actually going to take us to get them familiar with using the controllers and moving around in a virtual environment. That's right. So when actually rolling it out the virtual reality training, sometimes, frontline police officers have been able to get used to using virtual reality and the hand controllers very, very easily. Others have found it a bit more difficult because they haven't used the technology before. So I think the next big game changer for us, from our perspective, is the fact that we're going to be having the hand tracking, and when that becomes better and more improved and more universally used, to be able to just put a headset on a police officer or someone and allow them to use their hands as they would in the real world will be another big game changer for us within that kind of training environment, definitely.
Yeah, excellent.
This is really exactly tying up to my question, because you mentioned before about to get a person in immersive, and you now mentioned about hand tracking. How about full body tracking and motion capture? Have you explored this area, and if so, can you share any experience what you're finding?
So we have looked at some full body motion tracking. I can't mention the companies that we've engaged with because of commercial sensitivities and things like that. So we have been looking at that type of technology. The only thing that has really restricted us around that technology is affordability at the moment. For instance, we were looking at one particular motion tracking suit that costs in excess of £10,000. So for us to be able to go down that line with public money, it's a justification thing. We have to really have a solid business case when we start to spending that sort of amount of money, because that is money which, if we don't spend it, could actually be spent on other areas of policing which are vitally important as well. So whenever we look at new technologies and things like that, we really have to have a solid business case as to why we need that technology, and that the benefits that technology is going to bring outweighs the cost. It's always that cost benefit analysis. What we found at the moment is that the cost of that sort of technology isn't quite at that threshold for us within my team at the moment, and the sort of budgets that we work with and things of that nature. And certainly some of the applications that we've been using virtual reality training for, we've found that actually, although it would be a nice to have, how much is it going to bring to the learning experience, and how much are they going to learn better as a result of having that full body tracking suit? And at the moment, that question's a little bit unanswered because we haven't tested it, but the general kind of thinking is, before we move to that sort of level of hardware, we really need to establish, for want of a better phrase, the basics of VR that we're currently doing.
Yeah, so from my personal experience as well, again, from what Kyle is actually saying, yeah, it's a cost issue at the moment. Further down the line, all those full body tracking and hiding all your 5 senses is really the way forward. So when you are immersed, it gives you that full experience. However, with the current crisis and the economy at the moment, then I also agree that it would be a cost issue at the moment until prices sort of go down. But really is your heightened senses really, which is the way forward.
I think because there's a lot of work going on in the universities, that if we can get some collective results coming out of the universities and drive some real data that says this is what you'll get from it, and then take the cost, if I was looking at it from a long-term plan, the cost should come out of the environments that you live in, that you work in. The cost should be centrally located in the technology development, so you have access to these tools to improve your services. It shouldn't be something that you have to be reliant on yourselves to fund, because there's probably more important things directly you have to fund. And I think that's where a collective group could start to push that centrally located funding that allows this sort of technology to support all services.
Yeah. So Brian, yeah,
Brian,
so
just quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, just going to say on the motion tracking, body tracking thing, it's an interesting thing to touch on, because I actually think at some point we might pass the point where we need motion tracked people, because we, look at your face. We've all seen the things from Facebook that are coming where you can see your own face in VR. So eventually, I'm trying to say, why would you need motion tracked people when I could just basically have Mike or Kyle or Brian in the VR scene with me, and you can act out the things that you wanted to have motion captured. You can either record it or you can do those things, and you would look real anyway. So I think photogrammetry for scanned people and motion rigging, stuff like that, we might just flip up past that bit with the next lot of headsets.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but I think the more that you can transcend from motion into the environment, I think the more you're touching on the sensory thing. So I think it's just that level of realism, level of motion that you don't have to force into a scene, or if you can do it so it becomes somebody's being tracked. It doesn't have to be tracked through markers. It could be tracked through AI that is now, you can get it on your phone, where they can track movement, and then you can put that into a virtual scene. So I think there's a place for it, and I think it just needs to develop, like all of the senses need developing, to give you that fuller immersion, I think, my opinion. Any questions? Because we're coming towards the end. We have another session, do more of an interactive walk around event, where you can ask more questions. But is there anything in the audience that wants to ask any further questions?
Question, well, both, but in particular for Kyle with the Met. Are you looking at using immersive technology for things like de-escalation, empathy training, or PTSD? Thinking in particular what's going on in the United States and is spilling over everywhere else as far as Black Lives Matter and the social unrest. The priority seems to be right now looking at training for police officers, especially things like de-escalation or empathy training. So curious if that's been considered yet, or?
Yeah, cheers, Greg. Certainly, it's something that we are considering. So, although I personally work within counter-terrorism, there are other departments within the Metropolitan Police who have approached my team to talk about the ability to use this technology and the journey and the things that we've learned to create things for other areas of policing, as you say, de-escalation and other policing issues and things of that nature. So there is work going on about that. Within the Met at the moment, my team is the only team that's actually producing virtual reality-based training, but we are working very closely now with our central training unit, who has responsibility for all of the other types of training that you are talking about there. PTSD is one of the things, and mental health is one of the things that we have been looking at using virtual reality-based training for, and we would hope to move to that in the future. Our vision in the Metropolitan Police is very much that virtual reality isn't just pigeonholed for counter-terrorism. It just so happens that that is where this particular project's grown and where this particular team's grown. But what we are looking at is now the options for like a 5 and 10 year plan moving forward as to how virtual reality can be used more widely. And as I say, we're working with our central training unit at the moment, who currently produces all of those other bits of training, and we're working with them to help them build up their own internal capability as well to produce virtual reality based training. So for instance, some of the other things that we've done is we do have a 360-degree video training package, which is all about cycling awareness, which we've actually used with members of the public. So members of the public, you know, we have cycle accidents in London on a daily basis, unfortunately, and we have a lot of fatalities. So what we've done is there's a bit of a roadshow kind of virtual reality experience where we can go out to members of the public who cycle to work and things of that nature, put them in a headset, and they can actually experience the perspective from a heavy goods vehicle, and they can understand the blind spots of a heavy goods vehicle, so that when they're next cycling on the streets of London, they actually think, well, actually, I'm not going to undertake a heavy goods vehicle there, I'm not going to overtake a heavy goods vehicle there, or I'm going to keep my distance from it, because they've actually had that experience of sitting in the cabin of a heavy goods vehicle, and they understand the restrictions of the driver's view, which is quite commonly a reason why those sorts of road traffic accidents occur. So yes, is answer to your question. We are looking at using it for other areas and other training scenarios, but at the moment within the Metropolitan Police, the counter-terrorism side of things is where we've had the most progression and use of the technology. But I personally hope that the other areas will catch up very quickly.
Carl, it might be worth you tying up with UCL because Mal Slater and Anthony Steed have done a lot on this particular area, especially what you mentioned about embodiment, in putting people in different scenarios, putting people in different personalities. So it'd be worth
I saw a fantastic, again, it was a 360 video package that was put together by Chicago Police, where officers turn up to an incident where a member of the public is actually having a mental health episode, and what the officer gets to do is see the scenario play out from the perspective of the police officer, but then also gets to see the scenario play out from the perspective of the member of the public who's having the mental health episode, and also a member of the public that's watching on, so that the officer can really learn about, actually they can empathize with the other person and they can empathize with those that are there, and it helps them again making that decision-making process about understanding how their behavior affects other people's behavior around them. So that's a fantastic package, and I would love to see that emulated here within the UK as well.
Okay.